that the later arriving Europeans did. They did have territorial hunting grounds. They respected the land and used it as a way of existence. Upon arrival of the Europeans, they looked upon America as a land to conquer, control, and own. The French controlled the area they called Louisiana for about 63 years. What right did they have and other nations to take over this land? That's a pretty big question. The case of Africa presents a similar point. In the late 1800s, a massive movement of Europeans arrived there to claim ownership of something that was not theirs. Following the French control, the Spanish laid claim to the land for a number of decades. Then the land reverted to France, but just for a few years. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 brought the land into the sphere of the United States. There were Native Americans living in the land that would become Iowa. There was kind of a paradox concerning the quote-unquote ownership of the land, because white people could not legally settle in Iowa until after 1832 with the Black Hawk Purchase. Through the Louisiana Purchase, the land of Iowa became part of the Louisiana Territory. When Louisiana became a state in 1812, the land of Iowa was in the Missouri Territory. The 1821 statehood of Missouri left Iowa in an unorganized territory. This established the southern border of future Iowa. Iowa's land remained in the unorganized territory for some 12 years. Chief Black Hawk was defeated in what was termed the Black Hawk War, resulting in the Black Hawk Purchase. This was really punishment to Black Hawk and the other Native Americans in eastern Iowa. With that, the Native Americans relinquished their rights to any of the land in this yellow sector shown in eastern Iowa. But the land upon which Iowa City would be founded was not included. In 1833, the Michigan Territory was formed, and future Iowa became part of that jurisdiction. Gets rather complicated, doesn't it? Then, in 1836, Michigan became a state, and the land to become Iowa became part of the Wisconsin Territory. In 1836, the Keokuk Reserve Purchase took place, and in 1837, the second Black Hawk Purchase secured the land where Iowa City would be established, allowing that area to be legally occupied by white people for the first time. Now, all of the land that would become Johnson County, our county here, was obtained from the Native Americans. In December of 1837, Johnson County was established along with many other counties that were part of, I've got something kind of goofed up here. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. When I was doing all my editing, I kind of messed this up a bit. Anyway, the point I want to make here is that Johnson County existed before we were even a state, before we were even in the Iowa Territory. We were part of the Wisconsin Territory. It's rather interesting. In 1837, Burlington, which is in Iowa, became the second territorial capital of the Wisconsin Territory, replacing the first one at Belmont, Wisconsin. In 1838, the land of Iowa finally became part of its own territory. And Burlington became the first capital of the Iowa Territory. Now, in regard to the Iowa Territory, the light green area and the dark green area together comprise the Iowa Territory, which existed from July 4th, 1838 until December 28th, 1846, when Iowa became a state. After that, The light green area was part of an unorganized territory until the Minnesota Territory was formed in 1849, and then Minnesota became a state in 1858. Thinking of my two friends out east, of course, there was none of this progression through territories, as they were states very early on in the founding of the United States. So it's quite a deal. This slide will serve as a summary of the rather complicated progression of the land of Iowa through the years. I'll leave that up for just a moment. This is Robert Lucas, the governor of the Iowa Territory, a rather cantankerous gentleman. He desired to move the capital from Burlington to a place closer to the center of the territory. So in January of 1839, an act of the Legislative Assembly of the Territory of Iowa specified that the new capital would be located in Johnson County, and the name of the new city to be created would be Iowa City. 3 commissioners were appointed to select the site within Johnson County. They were Chauncey Swan, John Ronalds, and Robert Ralston. Of all of my study, I've only found a picture of Chauncey Swan. On May 1st, 1839, Commissioners Chauncey Swan and John Ronalds met without Robert Ralston in Napoleon, the small settlement south of Iowa City. For those of us who know Iowa City, Napoleon Park is just where that location was. One source has it that Philip Clark established Napoleon. It was never more than a cabin and a 2-story frame house, but it became the first seat of Johnson County. A claim cabin and the first Johnson County courthouse were at Napoleon. I have never read of the derivation of the name Napoleon in the numerous sources I've studied. What do you folks think about that? This is a depiction of the vicinity of Napoleon. John Gilbert had a trading post there, which he probably built in 1837. Gilbert is often cited as the first white man to arrive in 1826 in what would later become Johnson County. He established a good rapport with the Native Americans. His real name was John W. Prentice, a native of the state of New York. He lost heavily in canal contracts while there and moved west. Gilbert abandoned his home in New York, made a change of name and business, moved to the Michigan Territory, and then on to Iowa. Gilbert was appointed the first postmaster at Napoleon on March 2nd, 1839, but died the next day, just a couple of months before the founding of Iowa City. To put a little juicier twist on Gilbert's background, I quote from a publication called The Little Village. Quote, "What probably doesn't get mentioned in school is that Gilbert's actual name was John Prentice, and one of the major reasons he came to Iowa is he was hiding from creditors. Prentice made a series of bad investments in canal construction projects in Ohio, and once his debts mounted up, he headed west, hiding his identity with a phony last name. Changing his name didn't do much to improve Prentice's luck. When he died in March 1839 of complications from gonorrhea, Prentice was deeply in debt to the companies that supplied his trading post with manufactured goods," unquote. I have to say, I've not seen this rather shameful portrayal of Gilbert printed anywhere else, so we'll take it for what it's worth. Professor Benjamin Shambaugh wrote that perhaps 1,000 Meskwakis occupied nearby land as late as 1838. Some Native Americans remained in the area until pressure from the white inhabitants compelled them to move further west. Shambaugh also wrote that 38 men came to Johnson County in 1838, perhaps half of them of families. Swan and Ronalds were directed to proceed to locate the seat of government at the most eligible point within the limits of Johnson County, in other words, to establish Iowa City there. And on the following day, the first meeting of these two men They selected a place on bluffs above the Iowa River as the site for Iowa City. Nearby, they found a quarry with in mind a place that would yield stone for the construction of a Capitol building. On May 4th of 1839, the commissioners officially located the permanent seat of the government of the Territory of Iowa. This became the location of the Capitol building, and the site selection was met with enthusiastic approval. And 2 days later, Robert Ralston met with the other two commissioners to take his oath prescribed by law. The namesakes of these three men are found in such things as Ralston Creek, Ronald Street in North Iowa City, and the structures and park associated with Chauncey Swan on and near Gilbert Street. On May 7th, Chauncey Swan was appointed as acting commissioner. Between these three men, he was the principal prime mover in the early establishment of the city. The survey of the city town site began in real earnest on July 1st. By July 4th, a draft of the first map of Iowa City was completed, and this is a copy of that map. The ground for Capitol Square was selected first. Then the southeast corner of the square was used as the starting point for the survey. An ordinary surveyor's compass was used, and lines were measured with a wooden pole 20 feet long. Tally pins were placed into the ground. Now, concerning the departure of the Native Americans who occupied the land, Gerald Manchime wrote, Chief Powashik was a chief of the Meskwaki Indians on the Iowa River. His tribe inhabited 3 villages south of Napoleon until the fall of 1839. Irving Weber wrote, Chief Powashik was born in 1787 when the Meskwakis were members of the Fox tribe, settled along the Rock River near Rock Island, and were well established in the Johnson County area before 1826. Weber wrote, Chief Powashik, Meskwaki Indian chief, was considered just, brave, and true to his word by white pioneers. His town was about 4 miles south of Iowa City on the Sand Road, with an estimated population of up to 2,000. Trowbridge claimed Powashik was a large, fat, lazy man, weighing about 250 pounds, and fond of whiskey, often drunk. Gilbert was an agent for the American Fur Company before striking out on his own in Napoleon. Gilbert wrote that John Gilbert's trading post was close to Powashik's Indian town. He further said that Gilbert was respected as well as trusted by Powashik, and he accompanied Powashik to Fort Armstrong, Rock Island, to help him with the treaties with the federal government. Shambaugh wrote that Gilbert gave 2 barrels of whiskey to Powashik in order to have the rights to erect his cabin. The September 18, 1996 Iowa City Press Citizen revealed the results of an archaeological study of the area in south of Napoleon. Archaeologist Cindy Peterson was quoted, "This was the biggie that we wanted to locate," unquote. Peterson meant they had found the exact site of Gilbert's first trading post. This first trading post of John Gilbert is the first documented non-Native American structure in Johnson County. The finding was the culmination of a project called Sand Road Heritage Corridor Survey. The survey located 34 archaeological sites along a 3-mile-long, mile-wide strip of land on the east side of the Iowa River just south of Iowa City. Gilbert's second trading post has also been identified. I want to read you Chief Powashik's parting words because they were powerful. Here's the quote. "Soon I shall go to a new home, and you will plant corn where my dead sleep. Our towns, the paths we have made, and the flowers we love will soon be yours. I have moved many times, and have seen the white man put his feet in the tracks of the Indian, and make the earth into fields and gardens. I know that I must go away, and you will be so glad when I am gone that you will soon forget that the meat and lodge fire of the Indian have been forever free to the stranger, and that at all times he has asked for what he has fought for, the right to be free." Here's the plat of Iowa City from 1839. Each block was numbered 1 through 100. Each block was 320 feet by 320 feet, with very few exceptions. Each block had 8 lots, each 80 feet by 150 feet. And an alley ran east-west down the middle of each block and was 20 feet wide. Most streets were 80 feet wide. Exceptions were the 5 streets that were 100 feet wide. I won't name them right now. And there was one street that was 120 feet wide, and that was Iowa Avenue. A governor's residence was envisioned at Governor Square at the east end of Iowa Avenue. Let's examine the features found on the original plat of Iowa City. We see an area at the northwest section marked Quarry. I've circled it. This is the place from which stone was taken to be used in the building of the old Capitol. It is believed that the quality of this limestone was less than that which was taken from many miles upstream. The higher quality stone was also used at the old Capitol. Along Church Street, we see a designation for 2 churches. They were never built, but one would have to assume that the street was named in anticipation of these houses of worship. Governor Square at the east end of Iowa and Washington Avenues, according to Weber, did have 2 Iowa governors live in the block for a short time, but later the block was divided into town lots and they were sold. We see College Green a little south and west of Governor Square. This place stands today on the sign as College Green, 1839. It has a rather colorful history. In 1853, a movement began to establish an Iowa Female Collegiate Institute. The basement and part of the first floor of a building were in place when the man behind the project died suddenly. The project failed and the structure was removed. 50 years later, playground equipment was established and even a 100-yard-long cinder track for races. In the 1920s, Iowa City Chautauqua was staged on College Green after having been in a couple of other locations. In the 1950s, summer concerts were held on Sunday afternoons. Today, the park is well maintained and has a gazebo and an historical marker concerning Iowa City's role in the Underground Railroad. For those of you who might not know it, John Brown came through Iowa City at one time. This area, marked Park, it shows 2 churches and a school. A Methodist church was established on the northeast corner of Dubuque and Jefferson. We can see that Ralston Creek was prominently depicted on the plat. The area labeled Center Market had many school buildings upon it, including the 2nd Ward School, when we were divided into 4 Ward School areas, the Grammar School, the high school, and the high school gymnasium. Today it has the Mercy Plaza medical offices, a parking ramp, and a surface parking lot. The area marked North Market once had the 3rd Ward School, but today is green space known as North Market Square Park. And finally, South Market once had a railroad depot for the Burlington, Cedar Rapids, and Northern Railroad that disappeared by the early 1930s. It now has the Iowa City Robert A. Lee Rec Center and parking facilities. Moving over to the Iowa River west of Capitol Square, the area is marked Promenade. In the late 1800s, the Iowa University's football field would be located on part of the promenade. The road marked Front Street on the east edge of the promenade is no longer in existence, but it once had homes built along the east side. An island appears in the river marked Dillon's Island. It no longer exists. The only Dillon I can recall is the Dillon who plowed the furrow alongside the old military road. And last, we note the marking of Lumberyard. I have no information about that. The numbered squares on the periphery of the plat are called outlots. The first brick maker in Iowa City, Sylvanus Johnson, was located in Outlot 24. Upon completion of the surveys and recordings of the map of Iowa City in the office of the recorder for Johnson County, on July 13th, the lots became ready for sale. And on July 25th, Governor Lucas proclaimed in accordance with the provisions of statute law, there would be 2 public sales. and these are the dates of those. Notification of the first sale was made throughout the territory and also published at the same time in Eastern newspapers. So perhaps near where you, Heidi, and Jenny were. As the sale date drew near, settlers as well as some Eastern capitalists appeared. Some of these were no doubt speculators. So how to house all these eager buyers? A man named Frederick Macy Irish moved from the East Coast, where he was involved with whaling, and made his way to Iowa City when he learned of the new capital city. He liked to be called Captain Irish. According to tradition, Irish had a structure named Lean Back Hall, hastily constructed over just a few days, shown in red here. It contained a bar, of course, a dining room, a kitchen, and just one bedroom. This bedroom could accommodate 30 to 40 or more men on a single bed of sorts, perhaps a little more than the bare floor. We think Leanback Hall was built at the location of our senior center. Irish's son, who wrote quite a bit of Iowa City history, related that the bare floor bed was not really the case, but there was padding of some sort, and he gave a little bit more of an elaborate description. Irish and Chauncey Swan became friends, and Irish helped Paul Stone for the construction of the old Capitol. On the first day of the sale, many apparently began their day with drinks. The auctioneer was from Dubuque. He announced the terms. The purchaser would need to pay 1/4 of the price in cash, and the remainder would be paid in 6, 12, and 18 months. The money would go into the territorial treasury for the construction of the Capitol building. The first sale of lots lasted for 3 days, and apparently 103 lots were sold, each one to the highest bidder. This slide shows that the first 3 lots sold were scattered about as the auctioneer and his wagon moved from one place to another. The highest price paid for a lot during this first sales period was $750. Today, Phillips Hall stands on this site and the one next to it. $750 was worth a whole lot more in those days. You might want to search that out. 4 lots, all on Block 52 on Ronald Street, sold for only $25 each. Quite the difference. 106 lots were sold during the second public sale. Together from the 2 sales, a little less than 1/4 of the platted lots were sold. But Shambaugh remarked that, quote, log cabins and frame houses were erected with unbelievable rapidity. Subsequent sales were held from time to time. Many of the early Iowa City notables purchased more than 1 lot each, such as Governor Lucas, who bought 12, and Captain Irish 4. In late 1840, the sale of lots was not going very well. Chauncey Swan asked that the sales price be reduced, and this was done, apparently from $300 to $200 each. The promenade, lumberyard, quarry, and Governor Square were also divided into lots for sale. Also, the Legislative Assembly donated Lot 10 to the citizens of Iowa City to be used as a public burying ground. The original Oakland Cemetery is shown here in red. The earliest roads, county roads leading out from Iowa City, went to Dubuque, such as the Old Military Road, one to Davenport, one to Bloomington, later named Muscatine, and one to Burlington. Front Street was named, I believe, for obvious reasons, fronting the river. Madison Street, named for President Madison. Capitol Street, or the Capitol Square. Clinton Street for DeWitt Clinton. DeWitt Clinton was highly regarded throughout the country. For one thing, he was instrumental in the development of the canal, the Erie Canal in New York. The first brick street to be paved was a section of Clinton Street in 1895 in front of the Capitol. Dubuque Street, named for the town of Dubuque. Lynn Street was named for Louis Fields Lynn, who was a senator from Missouri. And also our neighboring Lynn County was named for him. Gilbert Street for John Gilbert, whom I've talked quite a bit about. Van Buren Street was named for Martin Van Buren. I like this caricature of him on the left. He was president at the time of the founding of Iowa City. Johnson Street was named for his vice president at the time, Richard Mentor Johnson, also our county name for him. Dodge Street was named for Henry Dodge, the first governor of the Wisconsin Territory. Lucas Street from Robert Lucas, whom I've talked about as the governor. And Governor Street. Now, as far as east-west streets are concerned, we have Brown Street, for which I can find no attribution. Ronald Street was named for a founding father, whom I've mentioned. Church Street. Fairchild Street was named for a doctor who contributed maps to our territorial library. Davenport Street for the town of Davenport. Bloomington Street was named for the town of Bloomington. Bloomington became Muscatine. It has a bit of a history as well. It was known first as Casey's Woodpile, and then Newburgh, Bloomington, and finally Muscatine. Currently, Muscatine is a unique name not used by any other city in the country. Market Street, Jefferson Street for President Jefferson, Iowa Avenue, Washington Street, no doubt for President Washington, and College Street. I've talked a little bit about the Female Collegiate Institute, which folded, and finally Burlington Street for the town of Burlington. So even though Iowa City was selected as the new site of the territorial capital, it did not become the capital until 1841, after construction on the Capitol building began. The Capitol building was essentially completed in 1842. The last four territorial legislatures met in Iowa City until Iowa became a state on December 28th of 1846. Iowa City remained the capital of the state, during which time the first 6 Iowa General Assemblies met until the capitals relocated to Des Moines in 1857. And as a final note, Iowa City remained unincorporated for the first 14 years of its existence. At least on one occasion, voters rejected incorporation, fearing that their taxes would increase. And on January 24th of 1853, Iowa City did become incorporated. Thank you, Michelle and all. I'm going to see if I can stop sharing screen. Let's see, there we go. Okay.
Thank you, Tom. We don't
You're welcome.
have any questions in the chat, but let's go ahead and open it up to anyone who may have questions. You just unmute yourself and speak up. If we have too many people talking at the same time, I'll try to organize that a little bit better as well.